everybody. I'd like to call this meeting of the Maple Run Unified School District Board of Directors to order at 6 p.m. Today is Wednesday, October 16th, 2019, and we are in the Fairfield Center School Library. We have 9 board members present representing 8 votes. The first item is the agenda review. Are there any changes to the agenda? Look for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Al. Thank you, Sally. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Thank you, Nilda. Ayes have it. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Right over there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. We're now at visitors section. Do we have any visitors who want to address the board about something not on the agenda? So if you want to talk about transcripts, I'll let you do that when we get there. No? Okay, Sean, host presentation.
Hello. Welcome to our school. I am going to pretend to be Jack Barney, who is supposed to be here presenting, but he's on the soccer field back there and a little bit late. So Manya Tibbetts and I are going to do a little presentation for you. So take it away.
Rise Vermont helps us out. In 4th grade, our class got gold for healthy lifestyles.
So we did a lot of challenges for our health and got special prizes because of what we did. We earned bronze, silver, and then gold. And for example, we signed a tobacco-free pledge.
Our whole school got gold as well.
We're getting the gold award from Rise Vermont at a ceremony tomorrow.
Last week, we borrowed a bike trailer from Rise Vermont. The 4th grade went on a field trip, and then the 5th and 6th grades did as well.
Jack only drove into a ditch twice. This was his joke. He thinks he did pretty well.
We learned about bike safety.
Good delivery, Jack.
He had great delivery. He's been practicing this.
We learned about bike safety before the trip in writing class. We did packets and worksheets and talked about adjusting our helmets, checking our tires, hand signals, warnings, and signs. We also learned about passing safety by calling or ringing a bell. Let's just say safety on the trip.
It was the Missisquoi Valley Rail Trail, and for people who biked all the way, it was 3 miles in and 3 miles back. But some people only did half the trail.
Overall, it was a pretty good trip.
There are a couple of things we've been doing to be healthy in our school.
Our 7th and 8th graders hiked at Sterling Pond. Our 4th through 8th grade cross-country team hosted a meet here at Fairfield, and our boys' team won.
We did walk to school Wednesday. It was cold and chilly. Frost was everywhere. Some people thought it was good.
It was okay.
Jack didn't love it. Too cold, too wet. Ugh. And one last thing, we got a Gaga pit, by the way. We just installed a Gaga pit, which is super fun and everyone's loving it. And we are doing Odyssey of the Mind this year. We have our own group. It's a problem-solving program. Fairfield has been doing it for a long time, but never with its own group. We got 2nd place last year, and our trophies are behind you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was very good, Sean.
Thanks, Manya.
Jack will be very disappointed when he gets here. So when you see a little guy in a soccer kit, just give him a hand and then they can go.
Okay, item 6, the consent agenda. The agenda only has one item, the minutes from October 2nd. Does anybody want the minutes removed? If I don't hear any objections, the consent agenda will be adopted. Hi, Jack.
Hi, Jack.
So we just had to do the presentation. We ran out of time. Jack, I did it for you, but I didn't do as well as you did.
Jack, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, do you want to say anything? Let your game go. Good. I'm sorry we missed you.
Okay, come on, guys.
Bye.
Thank
Hi,
you.
Jack. Thank you.
Jamie, thank you for the
Manya.
Manya. Manya. What's a Gaga pit?
What?
What's a gaga pit?
It's like dodgeball.
But it's, you know, there's low walls and you have to get inside the walls.
If the ball hits your legs, you're out. You can only hit it with your hands. You try to get other people. So
Sounds like another board meeting.
thanks, Jamie.
Thanks,
I'd like to
Jamie.
suggest that the board members get into the Gaga pit together.
All right.
Could be a way to decide.
Yes. Yeah, Tech Center and BFA students helped to build it. Actually, they built it, period.
All right, hearing no objections, the consent agenda is adopted. Item 7A, old business, transcript update. Where's Bill?
I'm here. I'm kind of behind the column right now. Thank you. I'm going to hand out, we're going to do a very similar presentation. I know that yesterday you were handed the presentation through electronic means that we presented last night at the parent meeting. So I'm handing out the packet that we gave there because we may refer to it.
Thank you.
Folks were on, I know some of you had these from last night. I should just pass them that way, Mike. Sure. And Sean, you're on.
I'm on.
You're on. We're advancing. Great. Thanks. Well, thank you. Am I going? I'm sorry, this little stumble. We didn't get a chance to talk. We've been running since about
So,
10.
as Bill mentioned, we had a meeting last night of parents. As you know, in history, we have put Bill and Sarah on the process. The process has been going on for, I think he'll probably show you, probably about a month. And so today I asked him if he would present along with Sarah, and I think Preston too. would
Preston will be doing a
involved,
little
too.
bit, yep.
Oh, there you go.
And Chris as well.
So they will give you the presentation, the basic presentation that was done last evening.
And then we'll open up for questions.
Yep.
So, Sean, if you could advance it. Thanks.
For Nilda's sake, can you try
Yeah.
to?
So, Nilda, did you get the presentation at all?
I did.
Okay, good. I wanted to make sure you had that. So we're,
Yes, thank you.
do you want me to just let you know which slide we're on?
No, you can just go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So we wanted to, one of the things that Sarah and I have been tasked with, as everyone knows that we're relatively new to Maple Run, was auditing the proficiency-based learning system along with the proficiency-based scoring system. So that, looking at the progress of senior transcripts, supports that we could provide to the seniors and to their parents, and then next steps and plans for future forums and discussions. And we felt that last night was really the beginning of our work. But there's a lot of thank yous that we should give. We said it last night, we should say it again here tonight. One of the things that we really wanted to talk about is the support and help we've had from everyone. That starts first and foremost with the seniors. We've been working with them, with a work group of them that Alex Haig has led, and as he had the courage to bring to the board about a month ago, the issues that were going on with the transcripts, and was willing to help right away. So they have been tremendous. I can't say enough about the seniors. One of the grounding pieces of our work has been the more folks that are involved in the solution, the better solution we're getting. And that was true last night. We got 2 or 3 ideas that we hadn't even thought of that we're trying to put in place right now. So that's very helpful. After the seniors are the parents. I'd like to thank Liz Gamache and Jen Savage in particular. They've been really helpful. They helped last night really set a tone for our meeting, which was very respectful. The community, at the end, just feeling very good about the community of St. Albans as I knew coming back to the community, just the respect that was held in it. It's a very emotional issue for everyone. We're at a very emotional time for parents and seniors in their college admissions process. And that's to be expected, and then to have this on top of it. So that can produce some anxiety. So I thank the parents and students for that last night. It was a very respectful meeting. And we were there till about 9:30. Lastly, I have to thank the staff of BFA and the department chairs in particular. They have been tremendously supportive. We were in a meeting with them from 3 to 4:30 today. They're coming up with good ideas. They're telling us what's happening in the system. They're saying, we need this, and we try to figure out how to get it to them next. They also said to Sarah and I, we know that you guys need to make some decisions right now, go make them. And then today we're starting to bring them back into that process because we need them in the process of making decisions. They've just been tremendous. So I really appreciate everyone and thank everyone for the work they're doing to support the children of Maple Run. Sean, if you can go one slide further, we can go, right to the grounding our work, yep.
Okay, so what you have on this slide are some terms that we will be using tonight in the presentation, and terms that we use throughout the proficiency-based system. So if at any time during the presentation you don't understand one of the terms, please ask for explanation. We want to be as clear as possible about what it is that we're talking about, and we want to make sure that everybody has an understanding. At the end of the report, we're going to be opening it up for discussion and for questions. And last night, we sent out an electronic survey for parents to fill out. Are we going to be doing that?
It's the same surveys up, and if anybody
Okay.
from this group wants to add in there, they can.
No.
Was it
So-
sent out to juniors?
It was sent out
Parents
to
and-
senior parents right now.
Okay.
And I know that we have others that we need to get to, and we're just trying to stagger this because, as we said last night a few times, and I don't know I can't remember if we did it, I think we did it right at the beginning, but throughout, we're trying to work for the November deadline right now. We know we need to get everyone involved.
Yeah.
And we know, as we said at the bottom, and we'll talk more about this, more forums and discussions is gonna be the best way to solve this.
Okay, good. Because I had a community member approach me today who I think has her maybe master's or maybe even doctorate in statistics. She was there last night and is interested in participating in but she's a junior.
I would be glad, I mean, I'm gonna take, as I said last night, any parent from any class, we need to develop a parent group.
Yeah.
And we need a parent leadership group to help us just the way the seniors have done. And more the merrier.
So we're currently collecting responses from the senior parents, and we will be opening up the survey to underclassmen and parents as well,
Yep.
to get more voices in on the process as we move forward through that.
So Chris, maybe you can give us a little bit of history on the proficiency-based learning in Vermont and in BFA in particular, just to make sure we're all grounded in some of the work that's gone forward.
Sure, I'd be glad to. So, we talked last night about some of the things that have occurred, some of the steps taken. As an old history teacher, I guess this is a good slide for me. 1415 was when the state board adopted the EQS standards, mandating the proficiency-based education requirements. We embarked on a series of steps to try to implement in good faith the spirit and intent of those requirements. One of our administrators attended a 15-day training and protocol sponsored by AOE. Our department heads that Bill referenced read a book by one of the foremost researchers in proficiency-based grading, and that is Thomas Gusky, and the book was called On Your Mark. It's a good quality piece that shapes really important conversation about the purpose of grading and communicating student achievement. In summer of 2016, the administrators designed and implemented this program. We had teachers trained in Canvas, remember that learning system, which we no longer use. At the time, it seemed like a really good choice. It seemed like a system, a learning system that would really support the implementation of standards-based grading, or what we now call proficiency-based scoring. After that, we wanted to bring in some professional help to help work on a PD with staff, so we hired a fellow named Michael Shackelford to spend 2 days with the entire faculty talking in terms of the benefits of standards-based grading. Another slide. We continue to try to bring good folks who are in the field to our school, who could work with our faculty and helping them acquire the knowledge, as well as school administrators, of course, on proficiency-based learning. So there was a person from that
Addison Northeast.
Thank you, Addison Northeast, who came in and worked with our staff for 2 days and was quite successful. I think people responded well to him and to his presentation. The ongoing professional development involved a variety of workshops, one of which I attended with a very well-respected educator, Rick Wormley, who's written many, many books and talks a lot about the benefits, the values of proficiency-based learning. I was with a team of teachers, about 8 people, I believe. I found it really informative. Others that attended work with Gusky, we did try to go to some of the top people to help us with this. As you know, it's been complex and did not work out as we had hoped. The school improvement team, which was a group of teachers who looked at the research and helped shape some of the decisions, went on a variety of visits. Other staff members were involved in a visit. I went on a visit myself down to Rutland High School, who faced similar issues, and it was a school with similar demographic and size that we thought could be very helpful in bringing back lessons learned to us. And because Canvas did not work the way we had hoped, we switched to a different, we went back in effect to Power School, which is now Unified Classroom. That's the piece that we're using to score and record and report student achievement. So that was, in effect, our story, our journey. Didn't end up where we wanted, and I guess I'm just going to break the script for a minute, because as BFA principal and somebody who is supposed to be the head learner, I think I mentioned this before a couple of weeks ago, you can't go through an experience as we have without thinking in terms of lessons learned. I would not be a good role model and a lifelong educator, and if I can't say to this community and to our students, what did I learn? What did we learn? Just a couple of things, because none of this is lost on me, certainly, and not to any person who is actively involved in trying to implement these requirements, which are based on good research. Planning, we really needed to plan better. Everything begins and ends with planning. This was something you can't just dive into the deep end of the pool and try to implement. There has to be better planning. And working with Bill over the last few weeks, some of his phraseology sticks in my head. He talks a lot about order of operations, and I think that was really something that we may have lacked in this. In the heat of things, you think you're doing the right thing, but we need a sound order of operations. So thank Bill for helping me with that lesson learned. Communication is critical. People talk a lot about communication. It's almost a cliche, but you really need to communicate. You can't over-communicate, especially when trying to implement something as complex as proficiency. So communication with staff, communication with you good folks, communication with our community, communication with kids, communication with families. Important lesson learned. Also, clarity. I've said, and maybe not executed as well as I would have wanted, clarity precedes confidence. I wish I could say I made that up, I didn't. But clarity does precede confidence, and perhaps we didn't have sufficient clarity in our communication to ensure that we could be successful in this endeavor. So I just wanted to mention that as head learner. Those are the lessons learned. That's what I take with me from this. I've listened hard, and I wanted to make sure that I have not only listened but processed and am able to execute with this new learning. Sometimes it sounds pretty basic, but in the heat of the moment, you forget what's really important. And that aside, and most importantly, I just do want to take a moment to let you all know that you know, as your principal, I have a very special relationship with the students. You know, even when we have called grown-ups into the principal's office, even for the best of reasons, the knees squirt a little bit, and, you know, it has that mystique in a building, and it's a role I've always taken very seriously and very proudly. And it hurts me to say that I let your kids down. And I need to tell you that. I guess that's important for me to know and for me to say. I try never to do that. It's a sacred trust that a principal has with his kids, in my case his. And I let him down. And that aside, you gotta say to yourself, okay, so what's the modeling? What can you teach? I'm still a teacher, even though I've been a principal for quite some time. It's kind of funny, when I was sitting next to Dr. Randall, I had a chance to look up. And I noticed one of the posters, and it said, in all settings, accept responsibility, be responsible. So this is me trying to execute what third graders should know. But I want to let you know that I am responsible for letting your kids down. And there have been lessons learned, so when you teach, you do something, it wasn't right, you accept responsibility, you try to make the corrections, and you're really, most importantly, still going to accept responsibility. I'm your principal, it's on me, I let your kids down. All I can tell you is, it hurts, and we're going to do better. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris.
So what we want, Sarah and I would like to do is kind of work you through a timeline of our work, and give you a report on the timeline, what we found, and our overall impressions, along with some details, and the support the seniors have been giving us, and then where we're going with the transcripts, and where we're at tonight, and where we'll be going shortly after, with what timelines we know, and what we think we have left to hit November 1st. So that's kind of the rest of the agenda on this. Jeff, I'm gonna ask you, and maybe we wanna take a minute for the board. I think everyone here has seen this, maybe Mike might be the only one, but that has seen this presentation, and I know I sent it out in advance yesterday, so we can either do an abridged version, or we can go through all the detail.
Well, maybe we could
Or-
ask who actually read it. I mean, I read it.
I was there.
You were there.
Oh, okay, so
Oh, you
we'll
got-
I
we'll
read
stop
it,
on each
yeah.
slide and just give a quick highlight, and if you wanna stop us, because we'll
Okay.
be glad to explain what's on there. I'm just trying to, what works best for the board.
Yep.
Does that sound
Thank
like a plan? Are we
Yes.
good with
Yes.
it? I think pretty much everyone's seen this in some form or another, so I'm not trying to rehash everything. So you can see our timeline, really on September 13th is when I kicked off. At first, we, in getting up to this piece, thought it was a technology issue, technology systems issues. Why isn't the technology printing? Quickly got to learn that it wasn't just the technology, but it was all the supporting systems with scoring within the school. So it's both the human systems that support scoring and the technology that pushes out the reports. You can see that we got to a first set of transcripts, and there's a copy in this printout of what they could look like currently, but there was a piece before that. We did a layout, and we added a GPA right away. That wasn't going to be done, but that's a decision that I made because I knew students wouldn't have access to merit scholarships. Some merit scholarships, I can't say all, because we know that some with some institutions can take care of that without a GPA, but especially the private ones would be hard. So we handed all those out on the 24th and 25th, our first rendition. And that first rendition, we learned a bunch of errors that were made. And I have to thank everybody, this is bringing it back. It's really been an engineering approach to this. The more that we collect information, the better fixes we can make. So in engineering solutions in STEM, you do versions of what's correct, and we've got to get to a point where we're stopping that. But that's been really helpful to get all that information back, and the guidance department's been tremendous. I can't thank them for filtering that information so we can get it to one spot.
So, September 27th, we sent out a letter to parents asking for feedback about transcripts so that we could maybe pinpoint some more errors that we may have missed. We started meeting with a small group of staff we called the task force to try to get deeper into some of the past issues, some of the ways that things have been done before, Bill and I, so that we could kind of get a better view of the history of what's been said and what's been done in the training and the practices. I went through a review of all the past public documentation that went out about proficiency-based grading. Some of those documents were posted on the website. Others were documents that were found, in the different offices. Talked to staff about practices, collect data from, how each department was doing their grading, and just found that there was a lot of inconsistencies. There was mixed messages. But we did find that every department, though they were doing it differently, they all had the student's best interest in mind and were doing their best with the information that they had been given. And that was really a wonderful thing to see, that each department was really, focusing on the student. So I don't want to get that lost in all of this, that the teachers really had the student's best interest in mind and was doing their best with what they had. We found October 4th, we did a Power School System overview, and we determined that we needed to contract an outside consultant for Power School so that we could do a deep dive into the computer system, because many of the issues are related to the actual technology system. So we're working on getting that person with consultants. It takes a little while for them to be able to get on their schedule. We started meeting with the senior focus group about their transcripts and kind of giving them an idea of different choices that they could determine or influence or have input on. And we continue to meet with the senior focus group regularly to talk about their ideas. We also came across the problem where the S2 grades, the semester 2 grades, were higher than year 1 grades. Bill and I went around individually to all of the teachers where those problems occurred, and confirmed with them and discussed with them the situation. And with the student's best interest in mind, we went with a higher score. So all of those year 1 scores were changed to the higher, to the 4. Okay.
Yep, and so, as Sarah said, we've been working with the seniors. They've done a great job not only of informing us, but help us plan how we work together and how we work together with the senior class. And they've been really focused on that. As we said, the previous slide, as you read in here, we did a 2-step survey process where what were the issues, and then getting from the seniors what their priorities of those issues were and how they felt about the issues. Is it something that it was basically a yes, no, should we tackle, is this something that should be fixed, and how should we fix it? So we got all that information, got that back really by Wednesday, and then Wednesday of last week, and then Thursday we sat down and looked at it, and a little bit later on I'm going to show you some more detail from the senior group and how we had some decisions, because they were asking great questions, and it took me about 3 days to really be able to answer them, I think, clearly, and I'll let any of the seniors in the room answer if I did, but I think I did eventually, which was what decisions can we make, what decisions can we influence, and which ones can we have input on, and we'll show you that today. So our overall impressions from looking at all this and looking at all the evidence that we've seen, it's been a confluence of independent decisions that have, when you take them individually, they may seem like a good decision, but no one was monitoring the whole and how they would impact the whole. So what may seem, and I used this example last night, there's been a decision that students can take assessment and retake an assessment and keep going. There's no end date to that. While in theory, and you read the theory about proficiency, that's the right thing to do, let kids have unlimited time. We're taking away the structure and helping them learn how to structure themselves for deadlines. And so it has turned into a motivation issue that I've heard from both teachers and students. And at the same time, it's pushing people to keep trying until they get that 3, because with a scale of 1 through 4 and 3 being credit, that's what you get credit for in a course, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting mastery for that assessment period at that time, but you might not have long-term knowledge that stays with you. So there's some real, those two decisions on their own really caused and that's just one example. There are other examples of that as well. So the monitoring of the whole is really important. We did not see that anywhere. And there isn't one person at BFA that knows the whole system start to finish right now, and we're trying to get ourselves on top of that. I was talking with a couple people we've been working closely with that are on the tech running the Power School side, and they're like, thank you. We've got to get somebody that knows the whole system, soup to nuts. So we've been working ourselves into that. There were two separate leadership committees that one had some decisions, another had another decisions. The information wasn't crossing, and neither were sure what level of decision-making authority they had. So there was confusion in messaging about the decisions, and so they were very unclear, and that produced a lack of communication. And then there was a lack of clarity for teachers. We heard this even again today in our department here. And the department heads are saying to us today, we just want one system. They were telling us for Friday, just give us one system on Friday. Start doing, and get this to one place. Because the allowing everyone to have whatever they wanted is what's added many confusions, where each department could decide how they were doing grades, has made confusion for the students and the parents, but also for the teachers as well.
And for the computer system.
And for the computer system. And Melissa, who is our database administrator, she's saying, if you give me one system, I can do that. It's the multiple different types of systems. And then the great thing about Power School is it's really flexible. It can do whatever you want. It's the largest student information system in the United States. It has 70% of the schools in Vermont in it. The bad thing about Power School is it can do whatever you want. It makes it very complex to set up. It has controls that are way down and screens that are 10, 12 clicks down to get to, going through different screens. It makes it very hard to manage. And so when you want all that flexibility, it's hard to get to standardization, which is what I've heard from seniors, I've heard from parents, and I've heard from staff. So those are a bit, the last thing I want to say is there's been limited professional development with staff. In my experience in working, whether it was standards-based grading, which was the titles back in 2005, and in Vermont has turned to Proficiency since the Vermont State School Board adopted the new education quality standards. They changed the word to Proficiency. I'm not quite sure why we've gone to Proficiency from standards. It's very similar. And the biggest challenge is always professional development. You basically, it has got to be your main focus, and there isn't enough you can give to teachers. There has to be lots and lots of professional development. Because we're taking a system, we've been in a Carnegie unit-based system for about 120 to 130 years now. It started from what was called the Committee of 10 when they designed high schools, and these were 10 college presidents that did in the 1880s. And then around 1900, the Carnegie unit system came out. That brought all that together. We were used to that system for that long. I could talk, and I said this last night, and I just want to say it again here. There are issues that need to be fixed that are in the proficiency-based system, but don't think those same issues still existed in the letter grading system. I talk about a colleague, I was a chemistry physics teacher, I had a colleague for 5 years, Peter and I were chemistry teachers, and we knew, the two of us, that our grades were not meaning the same thing. So a B in my class was not the same as a B in another class. Our teachers, I was talking to a couple social studies teachers today, they're doing that at BFA. For We the People, they're trying to get it, like every assessment, so they're really aligned. So they're doing the hard work in the building. The teachers are doing great work, and they're trying as hard as they can. They just need some more supports.
So the professional development that you're talking about is not just around using Power School, but it's also around
that
the
needs to be
grading
done.
system.
But there also is how do you teach in a proficiency-based learning system, and how do you score? And I want to be really clear about scoring and teaching. Scoring is a way of giving feedback back to parents and students about what's happening in the learning. And I'm deliberately using that because proficiency, I didn't say this last night, but I'm gonna say this for the board. The change in proficiency from the letter grade system always looked backwards. In a proficiency-based system, the question about a score that a teacher puts on the grade book is, what's your prediction, teacher, of the next time the student goes to learn something in that standard area, how will they perform? Do you see the difference? It's a prediction forward to the next, not what they've done in the past.
It's a prediction forward based on what they've done in the past.
Right, and there may be for different students, that prediction of the past, and thank you, Susan, for adding that, that's very critical, is you have to know what they've done in the past to say, where do you think they'll be the next time? And so for different students, there's different patterns, averaging, maximum, mode, mean. I mean, you have to look at those different, what the trend has been in the performance to say, where do you think it's gonna be the next time?
So when I see a score on Sarah's transcript, that's a prediction of what she's gonna do, not what she's doing right then?
No, on the transcript, it's the past, but I'm talking about reporting in a reporting system, like a report card should be looking forward right now. I could go down, I would need a whiteboard right now and get going with it, and I don't wanna take us all into there, but I want you to understand that slight difference in proficiency is you're trying to look forward, not look back. And you're looking forward based on the back evidence, the previous evidence.
So it's not a report, it's not a progress report what they're doing now. It's what you think they're gonna be doing in the future.
It's the next time they do it, the next time they do it.
So their current level of understanding.
It could be, but for some kids, I can actually show you some patterns that that's not a good representation of their current level right now. So this is why it can be we could really get mired down. I'm kind of wondering if I should have gotten into this, but I just want you to hear that difference, okay? Because this is the work we need to work with staff and students and parents so you understand what you're seeing.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be really especially important for the junior class.
Yep.
If you're gonna start doing that this year, the junior class has to know that now.
I think everybody needs to know that now.
Well, and I agree with that, but especially, like these.
I think that and this is one of the things that we've been talking about the PD today with the department heads, and they were looking at us like, you could see some of them were comprehending that for the first time right now, because they've been averaging just the way they did in number grades. And average may not be the best indicator. Okay.
Right.
Next, Sean. So what we've discovered, here's some of the details. The communication was limited and not clear, and I'm gonna read these, even though I'm trying to speed up, Jeff, I'm gonna read these because I think these are important to hear. Okay? Communication was limited and not clear to parents, students, and staff. We've seen multiple, can you go back one, Sean? No. Yeah, right there, right there, thank you. The decisions about, I said this earlier, the decisions about removing time limits for the system and multiple redos, while good in theory, really didn't encourage kids to stay up on their work. To pass a class, a student has to have a course average of 3 or greater to be proficient. We've really compacted our scoring system to 3s and 4s and a 2. It's either you're not making it, and so we're not taking full advantage of our scoring system that's a 1 through 4 system, even it shows that on rubrics.
In some classes, if you got a 3, you can't retake an assessment to get the 4.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it. We're trying to figure that out everywhere. We just
Right, but that's also just an important point.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there are different things like that, and I mean, we had a lot of those conversations with the seniors, right?
I'll tell you, not even just some classes, almost 99% of classes, you cannot retake a 3 for a 4.
Right.
So, yep. So these are decisions that have to be global. They can't be independent. The documentation, as Sarah said, shows really mixed messages and lack of clarity to parents, students, and staff. The proficiency progress reporting to parents and students, at best, is difficult to understand. When I first saw it, I just this is not a good way that as a parent or a student, and I'm an educator, I can comprehend it. It took me a little while to get into it. So it was, when you're getting 9 pages of report of individual indicators, it's hard to really know, because when you've been used to seeing a course score or a course grade come up through a system, and now you're seeing multiple lists. And the teachers, again, are doing the best they can, but to print out something that long is hard to do. So, next one.
So as I mentioned before, the staff was working the best they could with the knowledge that they had with the limited professional development, limited understanding, and really, trying to quickly make a switch from the system that they had grown up on and they had been teaching with for a very long time to this completely new system. They were doing the best that they could. There were a couple committees leading the implementation process. However, earlier, as he mentioned, it wasn't clear who had decision-making power, and so there were a lot of decisions, a lot of things that had been discussed, but decisions had not been made and implemented. We talked about how the current system is a mix of two systems, the letter grade and Carnegie unit-based and proficiency-based systems. So we have proficiency grades, but they're still earning credits as well. Departments determine their own systems of scoring, develop their own proficiencies, and because each department was doing it differently, it created confusion, especially for students who are having to move from department to department every day with a different set of expectations or rules. And also, again, going into the Power School, if every department is grading different and putting their grades differently into Power School, which is working on ones and zeros, it's not going to be able to interpret it properly, and that's where we get a lot of the errors that we found on the transcripts. Yeah, so we need to get both technology and the process changed for all stakeholders in order to move on in an effective way.
So working with seniors, we met with a senior class. I really want to thank Alex. His leadership's been tremendous. I said that last night. I'll keep saying it to you. I said it to you this morning too. He does stand up and say, hey, we've got an issue here. And then right away the next day after the last board meeting, Alex and I met that next morning, figured out the best way we could quickly get a group of seniors together to facilitate a discussion with the whole class. And Alex, again, thank you. That's been great. I just call it the group of 15, the leadership group. If you've got a better name, let me know. We should probably declare one for us at some point. No? Okay. They've been great. They've been brainstorming. They're transparent and they give me, the right feedback I need to hear. And that's exactly the way to work. They let me know when I'm not going in the right direction. They let me know when I am. They let us know when, nope, you're missing the mark. We were about ready to do something with old school chart paper that I love and dots, because that's where I'll go without the technology. And they all looked at me, and this was the morning before the senior meeting. They go, Bill, that's not going to work. You're going to have chaos. And they were good, and then they figured out a way to do it with Google Forms and all that, and we quickly did it. So just those type of adjustments about what's right and what's going to work to communicate has just been tremendous, and giving us information. As I said earlier, they did surveys, and they requested a concrete decision-making authority model. So, Sean, if you can go forward. And this took me a couple days to really kind of hear them, but then to communicate it back right. And I think this model has done it to really talk about what decisions they can make, what can they influence, and what can they inform. We said in making the decisions when we were going to do it, you couldn't advocate from your own position. You had to look at all the data. So when we were looking at should transferable skills be included in a proficiency average, we really looked at that, and we had, no one could tell the individual scores, but we had the distribution up there of transferable skills in and transferable skills out. And we really didn't see much movement in the data, either way. It just didn't move. It may move for an individual student, but it doesn't move overall for the class that much. And we had those distributions up there so they could see that. And we tried to really model, and we kept asking every time we'd make a decision, what will it do for the whole? We're not going to make an individual decision for an individual student, and will it harm kids? And that, as Sarah said earlier, that S2Y1 discussion was there were mixed messages. Kids thought the highest grade would go for the year one. So that was like, okay, that's a mixed message. It's 606 scores that need to be changed out of about 70,000, but we went and did that. So So with this, there's some other, you've seen this, so, and you've had a handout with this, with a different type of decisions. They helped us with some vocabulary, there's some things on the influence that we actually went through with some of those, and then we've also looked at the distribution, and really we went from last year, and Dr. Randall can talk more to this, but we used to always report deciles, so 10 equal groups of which decile the student was in. For this senior class, we're making some changes because of the issues that we've been in and looking at wanting to give them more supports. We decided to go to a distribution instead of a decile that has 28 separate separations. And that was something that the students worked with. And we also said that we'd be glad to give us class rank if someone needed that. We would do that in a separate letter, but not on the transcript. So, I think I just went over most of the next one as well. Is there something I missed there, Sarah? Ignore the next one, Sean.
Go to the next slide.
You go to the next slide. Is there something I missed there? No, one back. Right there.
Well, so they did decide to make the transferable skills average separate from the proficiency point average, which was formerly called the GPA, but since it's not really a GPA, they decided to call it a proficiency point average, which makes sense.
And we're explaining that, how those two, a GPA and a proficiency base, you'll see in the school profile, it talks about that.
And then course averages would be printed to the 100th place. Okay? That provides a little bit more distinction between students, which is what many students were looking for. And then again, he talked about the distribution with 28 groups of students, and on the school profile, which I think is in your packet, you can see at the bottom of it, it shows you what the distribution groups are and how many students are in each of those groups. Yeah.
And the one thing that a couple things the seniors have asked for, and Alex has voiced it here before in previous meetings, is a weighted, and I'm gonna say it's different than what it says on the slide because, and Alex, tell me if I've got you wrong, because I don't want to be misspeaking for you, but a weighted class rank.
Yes.
And so that's really become clear really this past week from our discussions.
Yes.
And different than a weighted GPA or proficiency.
Yes.
And then the other thing is some freshmen, we heard from the group they wanted to have the freshman year courses were all semesterized. If you go back, we went back and read all the programs of studies for the past 4 years. And so their freshman year, the way it usually works in a high school is your freshman year program of studies, this is what happens in college too, is your contract to how you graduate. That has been changing each year.
Mm-hmm.
So that had, well, if you look at their freshman year program of studies, it does not say anything of, it says about course credits, but it doesn't talk about the proficiency system. And that's been done in a proficiency-based learning document that is online and it is there, but that has been updated. So we've tried to look back at that. There's been questions about, is it 4 classes freshman year, Alex?
At least.
At least that are year-long classes. And they were semester classes in the program of studies. So it was asked, can we combine those and go with the last grade? Because the students were told your last grade is your score for that year in their freshman year. But when I go back and look at the data, for some of the kids, it's a lower score.
So
Their second semester is a lower score.
Right.
And some are higher. It's not, there isn't a consistent trend in the data. I'm not saying it's right or wrong to move it, I'm just telling you what the data is.
So we have classes that are semester-long classes, like We the People and Leadership, and we have year-long classes.
Right.
That's throughout their entire.
Right, but see, in their freshman year, and Dr. Randall, you'll have to help me here because you're the historian on this. But in their freshman year, at that point, even in something like global studies, is that an example of one?
Yep.
It had semester 1, and that was a course, and semester 2 was a course in the program of studies.
Even though it was all the same course.
And that, yes, and that has been true historically until the class of 2020, the start of their sophomore year. As long as I've been at BFA, until the 16, 17 school year. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
Their sophomore year, they've always been treated as 2 separate courses. That sort of the first half of your writing workshop or your American Lit was its own unique calc, and then the second half was its own unique class.
So how is that different than, I'm gonna say, pre-calc doing dual enrollment?
The dual enrollment, that's a great question. The dual enrollment, the reason that is set up as 2 separate semester classes is to allow for that college credit. Part of the flexible pathways bill says that if a student uses a dual enrollment voucher, we have to transcript that college credit on their high school transcript. So they're basically spending 1 semester in a high school pre-calculus class and a 2nd semester in a college pre-calculus class, because college pre-calculus is a semester-long class.
Can they do just dual enrollment the entire year long? And
Yeah.
call dual, pre-calc their first semester and dual enrollment their second semester? Because it seems like it's the same thing. It's the same class, it's a year-long class, because they can't only do they can't only do 1 semester of global studies, it has to be the entire year. Just like they can't just do 1 semester of pre-calc, it has to be the entire year.
Yep.
So would we treat it any differently?
And I've talked with Mr. Burke, the head of the math department, about that, and we're looking for other ways that would allow us to record and give appropriate credit for the college portion of that class, without somebody who's, because their dual enrollment is getting a credit and a half for a course that somebody who's not using dual enrollment is only getting a credit for, when it's the same curriculum in the same class. It's part of what we're balancing. One of the things that became clear to me in talking with Mr. Berthium is the way the math proficiencies are set up. They're working on different proficiencies semester 1 than semester 2. They're unique and separate proficiencies. So in terms of the impact on the GPA, and this is unique to math classes at the FA, it would have the exact same impact on the GPA, because they're only reporting on the proficiencies that they're doing in semester 1 and semester 1. They're only reporting on the proficiency they're doing in semester 2 and semester 2. So at the end of the year, it would be that same list of proficiencies, but it would be and I don't know the math proficiencies well enough to outline them, but my proficiency score from semester 1 would be my year score for the proficiency that we only worked on in semester 1. So in terms of the impact on the GPA, based on my conversation with Mr. Berthium, there isn't a difference.
I'm
By
gonna,
having that a semester.
Yeah, I just think it's important for the students to understand that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to interject on the semester being set up that way. It was not explained to us that it was set up as semesters. We were told it was year-long. Given that understanding by teachers, some teachers, I've experienced this, my classmates have experienced this, you could ask any kid in our class to testify to this. Some teachers verbatim told us, I will not give you a 4 right now because you need to be able to show growth.
Exactly.
So if we are to report semester scores, there is an incredible difference in a lot of kids' GPAs when you report that score that's inaccurate because teachers didn't know the system yet. A lot of them still don't, because who can? But it was not explained to us that it was semesters. And I've been told verbatim by an administrator at the school that the proficiency system is not meant to be broken into semesters. So if that's true, then I just wonder why we're doing that. And I also want to speak to the idea that there's not a trend in who goes up and who goes down when you get rid of the first semester. If you think about it, if it's the same class all year and you have the same teacher grading all year, it's safe to assume that the teacher grades the same way the entire year. So the only possible way for your GPA to drop would be to, for lack of a better term, would be if you slacked off your second semester. And kids who worked hard throughout the year and strived the entire year to get a 4 but could not in their first semester should not be penalized because of students who slacked off in the second semester whose GPAs go down, for lack of a better term. Thank you.
And I just want to say, I don't think you and I are disagreeing about anything. The pre-calculus, all I'm saying is that the proficiencies in first semester are not the same as the proficiencies in second semester.
I'm not talking about.
Right, and I just want to make sure we're clear about that.
Right, semester one, freshman year.
And I'm just saying that historically, because we weren't on a proficiency system, those classes were set up as 2 separate semesters. So what you experienced in your freshman year, I'm not saying it was right or wrong, I'm saying it's consistent with what has historically been done.
Forgive me, what I'm not understanding here is that, I mean, wouldn't that just there's different content in semester 1 versus content in semester 2. So,
So-
you know, you could understand
So I can support Alex's argument, and I can support the reason for the 2 semesters. I can support both without being able to get right in audit every single class, because it's the structure of the proficiencies. And we just said, in our evidence of what we found, the proficiencies have to be looked at as well. Okay, some departments structured their proficiencies so you couldn't necessarily go back because they were based on units of instruction. And some have a spiraling. If we look at the English proficiencies, there's 4 core areas, just as there are in the Vermont proficiencies and just as there are in the National English Language Arts Standards of speaking, listening, writing, and reading. Those go throughout in English. Math and science, and I understand why they did it, is to say we have a more linear learning progression to where we're showing where you may not come back to some of those same content in different semesters. So you're gonna have different content that goes to different standards. So
It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I think the part that is missing
Yeah.
is that students didn't understand that.
And
So
I'm
moving forward,
I'm communicating that that's true.
Yeah.
We've got that
moving
evidence.
forward, that needs to be really clear.
Okay, so next, I think we've done a lot about this, and you saw, there's a copy in the handout of the transcript from before. We would ask when we got to a decision, and this is what helped us with the online classes and the college courses, were they in the transcript before? What was there before? So that a lot of times was a guiding piece. That's why I wanted to have this slide. And the next one for the transcript, I'm not gonna go down and read all this. There's another handout in there that's really short, that gives a shorter synopsis of the training. It has, the one that has, it's in the first part of the packet, it has the class of 2020. These are some of the changes to the transcript. I will say from yesterday and handing out the transcripts that we printed out yesterday, we had a GPA error that we found at 130 when we were, between 1 and 2 when we were printing. Our printing ability right now at Power School is not, we can't report and print straight out of Power School right now. We do not have a static or dynamic report coming out of Power School. We're actually having to put images together to make the transcripts. So when we go to print the transcripts, we have to print the whole class at once. And if we have to do any fixes, we have to do it again. It takes 6 hours. So once we start, we're in that 6-hour routine. That's why we need Power School in to help us get to a dynamic report, so it's easier if a change is made for a student, we can then print the transcript right off. So that's where we're at for that. We have a GPA error, and we said it last night. I said it last night, where in the GPAs that went out yesterday, if a student had course denied, which is a CD for not getting credit, it made it so if the student received a 2.8 average course score, that did not get thrown into the numerator to divide to get to a proficiency point average. So for kids that got credit denied, their PPAs went down artificially from what we had intended. I've already modeled it today. We're ready to make that change. And we'll be letting parents and students know tomorrow that change is gonna happen. We spent the day today modeling what that would do, and put it back to where we expected the PPAs to be for the kids that missed. It's unfair to say, hey, you did the work, you should be credited for that work. It's back to that idea of it's a 3 for passing a class in that decision, but we need to rectify that. When we modeled it, there weren't gonna be any proficiencies, any proficiency point averages for any students that would go down. And students would be brought back up mainly to what they saw. And I can't say this for sure because some kids had classes added that weren't on the transcripts for the first round, but they're bringing kids back up for that error. And that will be getting out. We have to write the explanation. Literally, that got done. What about 3 this afternoon? So I want to sit down and write it really clearly for folks, for the parents and students to have that. So that will be fixed. The other thing that we've been asked about for this year's transcript is to look at a I was talking about, with Alex, has been talking about, is looking at a weighted proficiency ranking system. And so we started running models of that today.
So what, help me understand the difference between a weighted class rank and a weighted PPA.
So we're not gonna give a PPA, a weighted PPA. But we have to calculate one to get to a weighted class rank.
So when, I thought we weren't gonna do class rank.
So we said that we would give class ranks if students said they needed it for a scholarship. For this year's, if they need a scholarship. We tried to get to the distribution to be smaller, and this was a conversation that we had with the seniors to say, you know, we're used to doing deciles, we'll get much smaller distribution, but if you really need a class, if you've got a scholarship or for this, because of the issues and the confusion, we'll give you that class rank. I don't like class rank because anytime when you look at the system, if Sarah and Preston, you do this better than I do, so I probably should have you do it, but if Sarah's 100th point higher in a PPA, what's really the difference between our performance?
Right. So how are you gonna, I guess as a senior, I'm wondering, how are you gonna weight that?
So that's a good question.
And I guess the other talk that I've been hearing a lot about is, my question is, how are you gonna determine valedictorian? And is it gonna be on a weighted PPA? Is it gonna be on?
Yeah.
You know, I think those are big questions that a lot of seniors have.
Right, and I think that we shouldn't jump to do those decisions right now. We need to do those decisions that we're doing for November 1st.
The weighted PPA.
Yeah.
For class rank.
Yep.
And any senior can ask for that.
Yes, I haven't said that we've been doing models right now. I haven't made a decision on that. I just want to say I'm making models on that. I want to look at it more. I haven't had enough time,
Okay.
Susan, to look at it, so I don't want to give the illusion that I've made a decision to do it there. Are we all clear? I haven't made the decision.
I just want to make sure.
I want to look at it because I'm really looking at what it does to the distribution and the modeling within the system and what that does when you look at that. Because once that goes out, we've made a major decision to do something
Right,
that BFA has never done.
It totally changes the distribution for all of the students.
No, we're not gonna do it in the GPA piece, it's just to get to the PPA piece, we're just doing it for a class rank. We'll be giving non-weighted, and this is where Alex and we've gotten better on this, communicating, because we've been stumbling over each other.
So I
can speak to the reasoning behind that. So colleges will calculate their own GPA. They don't really care what you put down. They look at your classes, they say, okay, this class was more rigorous, you multiply by this much, you multiply this one by this much. But they will not recalculate your class rank. So if we are to put forth a ranking, if a student asks for the ranking, if we're to put that forth, we want to make sure it's accurate. And a ranking, by definition, should be almost a level of college readiness, and someone who takes AP classes is more college ready than someone who's taking the lower level classes.
So for me, it's going to be important that if it's put out there, all of the seniors understand that it's an option for everyone and not just one or two.
That's right. Oh yeah. No, we are. I want to go back to my pieces. If we do it for one, we're doing it for all.
Okay.
We're not doing. That's the way our decisions have been.
Okay.
And when we look at the data, we're looking at all. We're not making it on one individual.
Right.
So those are the decisions when we're trying. When I look at the data, I strip the names off it. I go right away to student numbers, because I don't want to know I don't want to trip my brain up in looking at it. I actually asked Melissa to give me the data without student names on it, but we have to match it, so I need a number to match it from different tables. Like, I don't want kids' names on it when I look at it.
Bill, to clarify, if
Yeah.
you do a rank,
Yeah.
it's on a separate,
It's not on the transcript, it's a separate letter. The idea we've been floating today, I'm not saying this is our decision, is that we would say your rank unweighted would be this, a weighted rank would be this. And we'd explain how we got to that rank. And a student could use that how they wanted to. But we would write it in a separate letter. We're trying to, this is giving additional support, so I want to move to that slide, so Preston, you can explain the additional, Preston about 2 weeks ago said something to Sarah and I, we were working down in my office, and with the three of us just kind of lit up like, this is the way to communicate about supports. So Preston, if you can talk about that.
Yeah. So and this is really about college admissions. So the college admissions process, the first and most important step is to determine how likely is a student to be successful at that college? Sort of like when I was hired a little over 19 years ago to be a school counselor at BFA, the first question that hiring committee, I assume, asked, I wasn't on it, so I don't know, was, can Preston do the job? And then once they decided, could Preston do the job at BFA, then the question is it the right fit? Of the people who can do the job at BFA, is Preston the right best candidate? In a lot of ways, college admissions is similar to that. So the first thing they want to know is, when I apply to Vermont Technical College, when they look at my application, is there enough evidence in there for them to confidently predict I'll be successful at VTC or whatever college I apply to? That's the first thing they're looking at. And then once they have their pool of applicants who will be successful there, assuming that's more than they have seats for, then they're starting to look at some of those other things, sort of like BFA would start to look at the fit of me as a candidate with BFA to determine if, of the qualified candidates, am I the strongest? So
successful because of a lot of these same issues. Mastery learning then transformed itself into differentiated learning or differential learning, and now it's been reincarnated as proficiency learning. None of this is new. There's just very subtle differences between the different plans. But the goal of raising everybody up is very, very admirable, but what they're doing is they're giving you the illusion that these kids are now proficient all of a sudden. If you tested the kids, when the kids left town school, or they left Fairfield school, or they left the Bakersfield school, and they came to our school, am I correct in saying that they're between 30 and 50% proficient when they're tested at the grade school level?
I don't know, I'm
In
sorry,
the
I'm
inter-high school?
too new to.
My wife has these statistics. Is that correct? Is it between like 38 and 52%? They're graduating from BFA. That is not changing. And if you do the research and you go back in history, the whole proficiency-based model and all of its prior iterations are based on the assumption that you are tailoring an educational program to a child and you're providing them multiple pathways. And for some kids, that means early college opportunities. For other kids, that means dual enrollment opportunities. For other children, that might mean work experience or internships, all those things. And that was the intent of this, is my reading and my understanding, was to enable kids to have different pathways to graduation with the goal by 2020 to have the majority of the kids in this state graduating from high school. That's an admirable goal. We're seeing lower and lower test scores with each passing year. And so I asked my wife, I said, well, what has been put in place? Because my daughter will come home, she will take a test, and some of her friends will say, well, I didn't study because I can just retake it next week. And they can keep retaking it until they get a 3. And I said, well, what's the process? Is there any additional instruction that goes into it? No. I said, well, what about the kids that are having difficulty with reading and writing? Has the school hired reading and writing teachers? Have they hired reading recovery teachers? Have we added staffing extra help sessions after school? Have we put in place any programs where we have peer mentoring, where we have proficient students helping younger students gain? No, no, and no. And then I come to find out that we've actually laid off 11 teachers during the rollout of this. The whole proficiency model, or the mastery learning model, or the differentiated learning model only works if you take into account that there's going to have to be additional resources added in, because you're taking the time to tailor an educational system to the individual child. That doesn't mean you can ignore the ones that have become proficient while you get these others to proficiency. It needs more staffing and it needs more services. And I don't see that the school is doing that. I see that we're laying off teachers and we're reducing classes and we're reducing services, to the point where my daughter came home the other day and told me that they're doing away with accelerated courses next year. And she was sad about that. And it's just, you can't have both. You can't keep tinkering with numbers until you placate a majority of the parents. And you can't say that we're going to, because we're not doing a service to these children that are trying to get into West Point or into Harvard or into Yale or into Princeton And we're also doing a disservice to a child that's leaving BFA thinking that they have a 3.0 average and that they're a B student, when in reality, they're not able to read and write at a proficient level, and they're not able to do math, they can't balance their checkbook, they can't do the skills that they need to go to technical school. We're doing a severe disservice to that child, even more so. The kid that could have gone to Yale will still get into UVM. And the kid that could have gone to West Point will still get into school somewhere. The kids that we're really, really doing a disservice to, that I don't see mentioned here, are these kids that were the 1s and 2s. And we've made them go away by making it appear that they're 3s. And that is patently wrong. That's something that I really believe needs to be addressed. Because you can stand up and you can put up videos on PowerPoints about building hamburgers, and you can tell stories about going to the Revere Hotel, and it's a journey along the way. But when the state tests come out and only 30% of the kids are proficient, you failed at that point. And this isn't year one. This system's been in place now for 3 years, right?
Yes.
So how is it, I mean, maybe one of you can speak to this. How is it that 3 years have passed and our test scores have consistently dropped? We're not serving these kids that we purport to be raising up. We're not. That is just absolute negligence in my view. And it's really, really wrong. And so I don't want to take up the entire meeting, and I don't want to placate anybody. I don't want to accuse anybody of wrongdoing. I just want everyone to be aware of the truth. Because, you know, Preston, you're a wonderful orator. You can stand up and you can speak, and you have me convinced after I listen to you speak for 5 minutes that this is going to be a worthwhile system. But then you get back to the basics. It doesn't work because it's on flawed data. It has to be, if we're going to go down this road, we have to do two things. I'm fine with keeping 1 through 4, and you're right, college admissions counselors will figure that out if we provide them, you know, tools such as like CVU is. CVU, in my mind, is the model standard. We don't have to reinvent anything. We could fix this tomorrow. Last year, Power School had grades. CVU is putting out stuff that works. This isn't a major issue. This could be fixed. It's just we have arrogance and hubris, I believe, that it doesn't allow us to say we've made some errors in this process and we need to change, and we need to admit that we've made errors. Then we can progress. They can recalculate numbers all day long. It isn't going to change anything. If we're going to have to do two things, we're going to have to either go back to a 0 to 100 grading system, or keep the 1 through 4, but convert all the tests and all the assessments to a 100th place scale. Then it's mathematically sound when you average numbers. 4th grade math says, yes, I can average 3s and 4s and I can get a 2.78 and say that that is where this child fits on the spectrum. But if you understand what these numbers represent, it's not sound, and you can average them all day long and not get anything. You're not getting anything. You're just using up resources, and you're actually postponing the inevitable, which is that we actually have to fix that. I don't want to blame anybody. I'm here to say we need to fix this. I'm willing to help in any way I can.
Thank you.
The other thing we have to do is we have to commit, the board has to commit, if we're actually going to go to this proficiency-based or differentiated learning, differential learning, mastery learning, if you want to go all the way back to 1968 or so, if we're going to implement that, the school has to commit. We need to hire reading recovery teachers. We need to hire teachers to be there prior to school to work with kids in math and science and English. We need to be there during, you know, their study halls and their periods, and afterward. We have to add more staff, not cut staff, and it's going to be an expense. And that is part of this process. You cannot institute this process without spending the money to support it. And if you're not willing to do that, then we have to back up and go back to the 0 to 100, A through B, and continue the way we were.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak? Alex?
So I want to reiterate some things I said last night. Obviously, not everyone was there, so I'm going to go back over it. So basically, this system has been implemented. We can't go back and change it right now for the seniors. And all those grades are in. We can't go back retroactively and fix them for every student, even though a lot of them are wrong. Individual cases can be tackled, but as a whole, we can't go back and audit the entire system. It's not possible by November 1st. So what we're working on right now is how are we going to accurately report using flawed data. So it's been mentioned earlier in this meeting, the semester one, year one, the first semester of our freshman year is wrong. I'll come out and say that it is wrong. You want to look at my transcript, you want to look at any of my friends, you want to look at any of my peers, you can see right there that it's wrong. I have the largest concentration, personally, I have the largest concentration of non-4 grades in the semester one of my freshman year. It brings my GPA down by 3/100ths, which is enough to drop you out of one of the top ranking slots. And it's been mentioned multiple times. I know it's a somewhat tricky issue, but I really think it needs to be seriously considered. All you have to do is get rid of the first semester scores for year-long classes in the freshman year. There's your one line of code. And then your other is to change the credit amounts for those year-long courses to 1, just like they appear on the rest of all the other years. It'll look more uniform, it'll be easier to read, and I feel that it'll be way more accurate. I also would like to recommend that we add the conversions for the A's to the 4 scale on the side. So if you, sorry, not everyone's going to be able to see this, but we have average scores.
They all have one in
for,
their handout.
Oh, okay,
So they
good.
can look at one right now.
Good.
You and I were talking about this morning. And
Yes.
I just haven't had a chance to tackle it since you told me this morning.
Yes, I just wanted to mention it to the board.
No, but go ahead. Go ahead. But I'm actually agreeing with you that we should do it.
Definitely.
Because you told me, I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do that.
The handbook actually supports what he's saying too, because they said they weren't going to be penalized for taking longer to become proficient, that it was a journey. It's in the handbook, it supports what you're saying.
So under the average score column, on grades that are on the A scale, it's just blank. I heard from a lot of kids last night, especially, that they had a hard time. You got to flip over to here. Okay, what's an A plus? That's a 4. Okay, flip back right into 4. Okay, what's an A? That's a 3.8. Okay, flip back. And a college is going to have to do the same thing. They're going to get tired of that. So if we just write down, it won't change a thing about any of the reporting. It's the same grade, but it'll just be easier to read. I feel like that's a simple fix. So the 100th place, we've added in the 100th place in our average score. That decision was made with the thought that it might make the data more accurate. However, it is, from what I've observed of what happened to everyone's transcript, I've looked around to a wide variety of my peers, the effect was completely random. There was no trend whatsoever in accuracy increase. Some went up and some went down, and there was no correlation between accelerated classes. There was no correlation between anything. I can't think of anything to compare it to because there was no correlation. It just changed. That was a decision that was agreed upon. I agreed with it at the time. Now seeing it in actuality in practice it's not quite as effective as it was on paper, especially because, as has been mentioned, we're going from one integer. We're going from a 1, 2, 3, or 4, and we're converting them into averages. And in terms of improving our accuracy reporting, it was thought, right, it was thought that going to the 100th place would make it more accurate, but talking statistics, completely randomized results. Yeah. So I'd recommend considering looking at that data and seeing how it changed, I think you'll see that it was almost entirely random, and it might be better to move back, especially since there are other changes that are going to have to be made anyway. It's going to need to reprint anyway, so it shouldn't be terribly hard to transfer back. I want to reiterate the point about weighted class rank. So if you go on the College Board website and you go to different colleges and you go to the application requirements tab, they'll list what they think is important. And a vast majority of the colleges that I looked at on there, and I looked at a broad range, I didn't just look at Ivies, I didn't just look at mid-level or lower-level colleges. A lot of them listed class rank as very important. And I know that's just one factor. That's obviously, like, that's not the end-all, be-all whatsoever. But I feel like we need to give our students every opportunity they can, especially since it would be an optional, it would be a choice whether you put your class rank on there or not. Some schools, they just want to check that box. I can tell you right now, let's say you look at Stanford, they have statistics that say all of our students are in the top 25% of their class. They want to be able to say that. So they want to have the data for that. And I can tell you, like, students, some of them need that. Some schools really want to report that data, and that's very important to them. Some schools don't. But we don't want to deny kids any opportunity that they might have had. And the reason I feel that it should be weighted is because, as I've said, a college isn't going to go in and weight it for you. The GPA, definitely. They'll go right in and they'll say, this class, this class, this class, yep, you're good. But if our class rank is to be a measure of college readiness, it's been said that AP classes, college classes, those higher level classes are a better indicator of your college readiness. And so I feel that they should be weighted higher only in the class rank setting, just because we're trying to rank college readiness. And we're not trying to hurt any students. That's why it's optional. And I feel that it's a really good thing to have. I can say personally, I applied to a scholarship, 3-4 days ago. They had 3 categories: GPA, class rank, ACT score. I only had GPA and an ACT score at that time. I did not have the class rank yet, so I wasn't able to put class rank down. If someone has the same GPA as me and the same ACT score as me, or let's say the difference evens out, they're going to go to class rank. Guess who doesn't have a class rank? I don't. So it's already affecting students, and I feel like we need to get on that. And I wanted to discuss some impact from including online and college classes. I think it's a really good idea to include them on the transcript. Here's the issue. When kids took these classes, they were told it didn't go into their GPA. So some kids I know, and I've taken a UVM class, but I know other kids who took UVM classes, which are inarguably at a higher level. It's a actual college class. And they got, I know my friends got A-minuses. If you look on this transfer sheet, that's a 3.6. Their average went down by, I'm not talking like a little bit, significant margin because of those 3.6s. An A- in a college class is really good, especially for a high school student. That's a very good grade. I can speak personally, I took a UVM class. Luckily, I managed to get an A in that class, so it only went to a 3.8, so my average stayed about the same when the online classes were added in. But I got 100 on every online class I took except for that one, so all of that hard work I did got canceled out by that one UVM class that I got an A in. So I think it might be important to look at the data for that. For the kids who took college classes, I'm guessing more of the kids who took college classes are going to be those upper level kids. And if their GPA drops while all the others are being brought up, you're decreasing the distribution, you're hurting the upper level kids. And I know that's definitely not on purpose. Including the college classes was meant to help kids. But I think it's very important to look at the data and how it actually affected kids. Let's see. So I want to end with, we want to get this done right, but we do want to get this done, and we want to put it behind us. A lot of us who've been advocating have AP classes, have college classes. I can tell you right now, I should be home doing my AP Physics and my AP Lit and my AP Stats. I'm taking 4 AP classes. I have spent, I can't even count how many hours trying to help, because this is my future. Because if I don't come here and help, if I don't get my ideas out, then maybe I don't get into Stanford. And that crushes me. So I am here doing this and potentially losing out on scores in my AP classes because I feel so strongly about this, and I feel so strongly that this needs to be changed. This needs to happen. It needs to happen quickly. Our deadline is November 1st. Our chances go down. I can tell you my chances for Stanford, the early admission, the percentage that get admitted is 9.5%. That's tiny. You know what it drops to for regular decision? 3.5%. That is incredible. So we need to get this done right. We need to get this done now because it affects all of us incredibly negatively. Thank you.
Thank you.
We all owe you an apology for not speaking up and putting our foot down. Your whole class deserves an apology from every person in this community. You're doing a good job, Alex.
Mike, did you want to say something?
I did. Excuse me. Did you get my email this morning?
I did.
Did you just circulate it?
No, I did not.
Sorry, I don't have enough copies. You know. That's all right. Kevin, you got it.
I read it too, so.
I gotta keep going.
We can share. We can share. Oh, share.
Appreciate the chance to get together and to speak last night, and I apologize in advance for people that have heard the spiel before. First and foremost, I appreciate all the effort that's gone into this last month of action items that the board, the administrators, superintendents, and guidance staff have tried to help parents get through this. I think the consistent message for the last month to 6 weeks is that there's been constant inconsistency for the last 2.5 years. Consistent inconsistency. So these are some observations my wife and I have kind of put together. When proficiency-based learning, the Pbl Grading System was introduced in 2016, there was a 4-point grading system. Teachers were tasked with interpreting a student's proficiency based on that 1 to 4 scale. Only a single-digit scores were allowed for each academic unit of measurement. For example, a 3.5 could not be entered for a specific academic assignment, only a 1, 2, 3, or 4. When first developed, parents and students understood that a 3.0 was a solid B to an A- grade. The grading scale has changed. The current BFA school profile clarifies that a 3.0 is the standard for graduation. In other words, if a student gets a 3, he or she will get a degree. It's safe to say that not all graduates are solid B students, therefore how could the scale be accurate? Lower level students are being raised up the PBL scale to graduate, and high achievers taking AP courses are being compressed downward. In our opinion, the state mandated PBL grading system is flawed for the following reasons. All grades are subjective and too vague. The criteria for performance is too numerous and confusing, and it's treated differently by all teaching staff. There are no checks and balances for students and parents to verify accuracy of the teacher's assignments on a regular basis. There is no accountability. With a numerical letter grade system, it's very clear to understand. If a student gets 16 of 20 questions correct on an exam, it's scored as an 80. The results can be easily verified and assistance from the teacher can be sought out to improve a student's proficiency. We all agree that repetition is the mother of learning. This can be achieved either from a traditional letter grade system or a PBL grading system. The recent Proficiency Point Average, or PPA, is not a real GPA and will likely be misinterpreted by college admissions counselors. High achievers that challenge themselves are not fairly rewarded for their efforts. There is no class rank to reward the best students for their efforts, as Alex has been striving for. The current grading system builds a system of mediocrity. As has been voiced recently, what incentive is there for students to challenge themselves if a modified 3 is needed for graduation? The subjectivity of the system does not account for the efforts of a high achiever who challenges him or herself with AP courses throughout high school. Grades are not weighted on the transcripts. Instead, we are relying on the guidance department to assist every student and disclose class rigor. Transferable skills, the true measure of a complete student's performance, is not factored into the PPA. As a taxpayer and consumer, I'm shocked at the amount of time, money, and resources that have been spent recently and over the past 2.5 years to implement and/or correct this poorly designed state-mandated grading system. So what are the fixes? We got short-term issues and we got long-term issues to solve. As I started to say earlier, I appreciate the fact that the school isn't working hard to correct mathematical mistakes with the transcripts and IT issues. But I've stressed two fixes that I think are unfair for the class of 2020. We need to correct and reissue timely transcripts, making adjustments for the new 3 to 4 scale so 2020 seniors are fairly treated so we can complete their college applications in the next week. What do I mean by that? There's been no consistency in application of grades and scores, 3 to 4s. So how do you make up for the class of 2020 to make it good for them? One way to do that is to factor in the transferable skills. It's easy to do, it's fair, and their GPA or PPA will go up because most kids do well in it. I've asked for that repeatedly, and due to the feedback of a handful of seniors, it's been shot down. And then there's a long-term fix. Well, one option is to abandon the proficiency-based system altogether, go back to traditional letter grade GPA system that rewards all students for their successes and reintroduce a meaningful honors award system. Right now we have an award system that's a joke. If number 3 is not possible or practical, by that I mean abandoning the system, implement or change the PBL scale to a quarter point or half point scale so teachers have the tools and ability to reward all students on all assignments that measure proficiency, including the high achievers that challenge themselves. In other words, if the teachers knew 2.5 years ago that a 3 was a passing grade to meet the intent for graduation, they might have given them a 3.5 if that option were there, if they had that tool. They don't, because the scale is whole numbers only, 1, 2, 3, or 4. So the 4s were unachievable because 4 is perfection, except for someone like Alex, who wants a 4.02. 4s were, we've been told by many teachers, I don't want to say not achievable, but they were reserved for the top-notch students, and rightfully so. As an example, if you're taking French 3, a teacher might mandate that in order to get a 4 in French 3, you need to speak fluent French. Well, not too many kids can do that. So consequently, the message we got as parents was 4s, don't expect too many 4s. So 3s were good. 3s was a B+, A-. Everybody was content with that. That was the message that was sent. That was the message we were told 2.5 years ago. And now we're being told it's, so in our case, we had what I'll call one accurate year, which was her freshman year, where she got a high 3 GPA, which was a letter grade, so we know it was accurate. And from there, the last two years since then, it's ratcheted down to mid-3s because of the inconsistencies associated with the grades that were applied. So how do you make it right to the class of 2020? We're talking about all this effort going into addressing these IT or mathematical mistakes, but you're forgetting about the 40 people that were in the gym last night, the pack last night, who were pretty much up in arms. I appreciate Jeff and Sue coming to that meeting to get a different parent perspective. So I'm here to advocate for those 30 or 40 2020 students that are not here tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Is there anyone else? Liz?
We'll try to be brief. Just a couple of thoughts. There will be no satisfaction when we finally get to the final point that we have a transcript for our seniors. We'll complete a task, but I don't think anyone can feel satisfied with what we're putting out. I'm concerned about two things moving forward. I'm concerned about having a progress reporting system that's fair, equitable, understandable, that we can use as a tool to help guide our students, that our students can use and understand to help them direct their performance. Progress reporting is one thing, the learning model is the other thing. Regardless of what learning model we use, we need a good set of tools and a good, consistent, understandable reporting system. Given the state that we're in order to move forward, I think we have to have a lot of discussion about what it means to move forward with a proficiency-based system, what the real costs are that are necessary to implement such a system, what the support is or isn't from the state, what the mandate is or isn't, because I think there's a lot of confusion about what actually is mandated and what isn't. And we can learn from schools that have done well, and we can learn from schools that are struggling like we are. So I think we're on the road to turning a corner to head in a positive direction to make change. I want to caution everybody that I don't think this is a quick fix. We'll make some changes soon, but this is to do this right. It's going to be a longer term, in-depth process. So I'm asking the school board to, I want to hold you accountable for holding the administration accountable for setting a plan and milestones so that we understand how we're doing as we move forward. And from a high level, what are the metrics that you can look at as a board to see if we're on track or off track? And I'm meaning over 1, 2, 5 years. Is it test scores? Is it college freshman dropout rates? I'm not an educator. I don't know what that measurement would be. I don't think the state has a clear set of metrics that they're using to measure the effectiveness, the success of proficiency standards. I think that's a huge miss, and I think we should be screaming about that if that's the case. How do we know if we're on track or off track? And we need to set our own standards to know whether we're 1, 2, 3, or 4 as we move forward.
Thank you, Liz.
Thanks.
Yes.
I will also be brief. I had a couple of thank yous and a couple of suggestions. My biggest thank you is to the teachers, because certainly over the last month, I have watched my son really grow and develop, and I'm incredibly proud of the young man that he is. And that's in large part to the teaching that he got from many of you in this room. And so I'm really proud of the fact that he could stand up and talk to us about significant digits. That's pretty cool. So thank you for that. I think Bill and Sarah, you've done an amazing job stepping into this fresh with some fresh eyes and put in a ton of effort, and I really do appreciate that. I know it's hard. I know you're trying to work through and make a quick fix for something that is very difficult to fix, and so I appreciate that. As a parent last night, Dr. Dirth, when you got up and apologized, that was huge for me. I hadn't heard that yet, and I appreciated that. And tonight, Mr. Moscow, when you did the same, I know that was very hard for you. I know how hard it is for anyone to apologize. I think that is really important for our kids to see and our kids to hear. So getting on to my suggestions, that is my first suggestion, that we please do, in front of the kids, tell them we're sorry. This is a bum deal. We're not going to be able to fix it exactly by November 1st. And I think it's important that they see us as adults stand up and say, we're sorry, guys. 2, I think that the ideas of having a good group of people coming right from the top down when we're trying to figure out what our next steps are, I think we need folks from the board. I think we need administrators. I think we need teachers. I think we need parents. I think we need students, because every time a group gets together in isolation, great ideas happen, but you don't have the perspective of the other people, and that makes all the difference. I think we should use our community a little bit. I don't know if this would make a difference or not, but one idea that I had today, my poor son, you know, I went to Union and so did my husband. So he's only a legacy student at one school, not two. But I certainly would be happy if there were any seniors that were interested in going to Union College. I would be happy to talk with them and then to talk to Union. And I feel like as a community, that's something we do really well, is get together around problems. So I would love to know if anybody knows anybody who went to Stanford, MIT, or RPI. That would be great. Right away. And lastly, I do think it's really important to talk to the junior class because they've got to be freaking out right now. And just even the talk that you gave, Mr. Randall, I think would be very helpful for them to hear right now. Like, don't slack off. Go ahead and take those hard courses. I know you're seeing these guys seem like they're penalized for it, but that's not the reality. So please do push forward. I think it's really important for them to hear that. It would be an easy assembly to have. Pull them in an enrichment, do that. And then as we figure things out, pull them in again and tell them again. Keep that line of communication open. Those are my suggestions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Did the board ever, was there was a consulting company ever consulted? And was there any effort made to actually investigate the cost of moving to the PBR system prior to implementation?
Not that I remember. That was just a long time ago, so.
I don't know, but at this point, I don't know if we have the ability and we have the capability within you know, this gathering to actually make this work. And I think that it might behoove you to consider, you know, possibly reaching out and finding a consulting company that could give you an idea of what the true costs of implementation of this process and continuing down this road will be, to actually do it and do it correctly and do it right. I don't think we have the confidence and the capability within the community to do it without some outside guidance. That's just my personal suggestion.
Thank you. I want to thank you all for coming. We're going to move on to the next item now, but as Bill said, there will be a lot more communication coming out. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Far.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
It doesn't have sugar.
Okay. Bill, we're going to put you up again.
Oh, that's okay.
It's okay.
Okay.
It's only one. Oh, I'm not eating it.
We're just waiting for Bill. Okay, item 7B, building project updates.
So currently, and I might ask Sean to help me for here. I am here. Thank you, Sean. To talk about some things that we're investigating here at Fairfield. As you probably drove up, you saw the snow fence that was out to the north of the building. The last full drawing, Sean, why don't you come on up? Hi. The last full drawings had the proposed construction over there. We are looking at an alternative right now. We're not sure if it's gonna fly, and we're trying to price it, that would move it all the way to the back of this wing.
Okay, so before you were just talking about an angle change.
Before we were trying to compact it away from the neighbor.
Yep.
And we're now looking at some pricing. I actually missed the construction meeting on Tuesday. Sean was there because I was at BFA, transcripts. But your quick update to me today was, and tell me if I get this wrong, why don't you just say it so I don't get it wrong?
Sure. Yeah, we're actually looking at coming off the end of the 88 wing with the music and the art room and an intervention space down there. Now, those of you who know this area know that that's a very tight little area, so it will be kind of taking up that whole little sort of cliff right there. But it seems like it would save on firewalling, because when you add to the building, you have to firewall everything from the old building, and that costs a lot of money. And there's not much that you'd have to firewall down there. And it avoids the neighbor's property entirely, so it would not have an impact on his property values. And it just seems like it might be the easiest thing to do. It would run off our new boilers instead of the old boilers on the other side of the building. So there are a lot of potential advantages that we just never really looked at that spot because it's such a small little piece of land. It just didn't seem possible, but the architect drew it out. It goes out 32 feet beyond where we are now. That might be the solution that we've been looking for.
How far does that one go out? Are you losing space?
No. Nope,
Okay.
we won't lose space. That particular version would have gone out, I believe, 20-ish, 20 to 25 feet on the newest drawing, beyond the edge of the covered walkway. It would have required the removal of those 3 trees, and it gets a little bit closer to the neighbor's property. Still able to do what we want to do over on this side with some fill and a little bit of a
Retaining wall.
A retaining wall, yeah.
So that, I was actually pleased when Sean told me that at about 5 o'clock, or 5:30 tonight. That was nice news, that they had figured that out. As for BFA right now.
So can I just ask, is that a done deal, or will you tell us at our next
We need to get an
meeting?
estimate on the cost.
Okay.
Because what we want to be sure of is that we're not changing costs.
Yep.
So can't say it's a done deal, but we're trying to look at alternatives.
How close does that bring you to the field, Sean?
It's above the field, so it's beyond the 10-foot setback that's required from the town property.
Okay.
But it would definitely be perched overlooking the field, so they'll have nice east-facing windows,
Yeah.
beautiful view of the mountains.
So will I have to take those posts out then?
Nope.
Sorry.
That came up
I
last
have
time.
no
Oh,
comment.
I know about posts.
Yeah.
Sean and I are both like, no comment on that. I'm not saying.
We're very thankful for all the work the town has done on our fields.
Okay, BFA.
BFA, we are moving on, right now we're in the midst of the pre-qualification standards that you said, so those are due the end of this month from the contractors. I think we had 7 different contractors do the tour. That doesn't mean they're all gonna bid, but we had 7 there. Laz has been doing a lot of drawings, getting a lot of the site survey. As we've talked about the complexity of this project, really with the utilities and going across the old Ferris Street there is very complex, and especially the power. The good news is that some of the inventory, of the old hospital, some windows were replaced so that we might be able to tackle windows in the new hospital section, because those windows are pretty poor as well. So we're trying to look at that. The biggest issue right now is with the Development Review Board. We're on a hold. We went to the Development Review Board this past month, and they wanted more information on the layout of Ferris and Lincoln Street. We have buses that already run on Ferris and Lincoln Street for the city school. So we already run them there. We showed the engineers showed the curve, the turning radiuses and all that would work. They put us back to a traffic study. So a traffic study will have to be done.
I can really appreciate that because I drive down there every day, and if there's a car parked at the corner of Lincoln and Ferris, the bus can't make their north turn
So-
onto Lincoln.
So today they were up there videoing buses
Okay,
doing it.
good.
They've been done before on drawings with the exact drawings and widths and show that, you know, you can do it through an engineering modeling. Today they were there videoing the buses doing it.
And I hope they take in, quite honestly, again, driving that every day in the daytime, I mean, this time of year, it's not that bad. In the winter time, we're down to a one lane. The kids, there's no sidewalk, so the kids are walking in the road. So it's one lane with my van coming down, especially from, well, it doesn't matter. Because the sidewalk is right on the street on Upper Lincoln, Upper Ferris as well, so the kids are walking down this, just.
As what was said to the DRB, if we have to move the bus turnaround, we'll lose more parking spaces.
Yeah.
And that's what they heard. And the city's been very supportive, the rest of the city hall, and I can't say enough about Public Works and Dominic for he's the city manager, am I correct on that?
Yes.
And they've been very, very helpful. So I think it's just getting us all on the same page, and we'll be back to the DRB in November.
So does that mean anything for dates?
Right now, Laz doesn't think it does. What we're more concerned about is actually construction and getting everything going in December. Is that really possible, or are we somewhere to February time? But for me, it's more, in my thinking, and Laz and I have had this discussion, it's crucial that we're done in the start of school for next school year. So it's having all that set, because we're gonna be having temporary walkways, and we've talked about all this.
Yep.
All that piece. So it's really trying, we don't want the construction to bleed into next school year. We're gonna be doing construction, and other schools have done it too, where you're doing construction during the school year. And it's the complexity of Fair Street and the power replacement that we're having to do. That's very complex work.
And has there been an actual plan devised as far as staff access for parking, and also maybe staff and or students that might
So we've
have
been reaching out with the city.
functional needs that need to get to school?
So we've been reaching out to the city on that. We haven't gotten back some information.
They
unless you
actually
have.
got back to me.
They did.
We've been so
I've
going
been,
in different
you've been letting me
directions.
doing some things.
The
I
mayor,
apologize if I hadn't heard this, but how are we on the timeline?
We're fine on timeline right now, Al.
So November 6th, you think we'll be able to approve the pre-qualification?
Yes, I think you will, yep.
the mayor
Just
has,
saying. Thank you.
has been working with me and with the new Monsignor of the Catholic Church up there to see if short-term, we could move the teachers into that parking lot. We may have to pay like a rent for the use of the parking lot. You know, there's that parish hall right in front.
And it's not often used.
It's not often used, and we'd probably have to work something out where if it's never really used until like after 4 p.m. Long-term, we're also having discussions. The former Monsignor, Roy, never wanted to have this discussion. The new person is willing to talk about allowing the school to use that as extra parking long-term. And again, we would be paying some sort of lease for that, if one would expect. So we're in the discussion stage right now. Tim Smith is feeling quite good, at least short-term, and we're going to continue working with that.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Bill. Item 8A, new business, personnel evaluation. We're gonna move this to executive session under 1 VSA 313A3, the employment or evaluation of an employee. We do not need a finding for that. And then other business, 9A warrants.
Move that the warrants be approved as printed.
Thank you, Al.
Seconded.
Thank you, Steve. Any discussion on the warrants? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 9-0.
This is Nelda. I'm going to abstain from that one because I haven't had a chance to review them all.
Okay. 801. Thank you, Nilda. Superintendent's report.
Three things today, folks. You may have heard us talking a few times, or certainly Martha talking about the new e-finance system and the struggles of having that system being put into place by the Agency of Education, in spite of the fact that 80% of the schools used a different one. And we just wanted, at the time, she's always wanted to let you know that there will be some struggling over the years, especially this year, to do that. Just to inform you, this week is a good example. We haven't had a business office since Tuesday, and we won't, because from Tuesday to Friday, they're at a mandatory workshop on e-finance down in Middlebury. So it's kind of been interesting not having a full anybody in business.
Did they do the dual payment run?
I'm sorry?
They were gonna run payroll
Yes.
on both systems?
Yes, yes. I mean, everything's fine. Martha's got it, but you can imagine a struggle for almost a whole week with your business people there. People will get paid.
And I think they're changing the chart of accounts again too,
Yes.
so it doesn't help.
Yes. So, but it's working out. It's fine. It's a struggle because they're not able to be in there and do it. And this will not be the last of that, but Martha's confident that we'll have the stuff in place. The second thing I just want to mention is after our retreat, and after talking to our administrators and our leadership team, we have a recommendation on format of board meetings moving forward. And I'd like your input on it. One thing we heard loud and clear is that there are items that we deal with all the time, both challenges and good stuff that we're moving forward on that you don't know about because we don't really speak about it enough. And we spoke about the format we presently have, which was put into place at the very beginning of the merger. Jim Farr put it in place for a very good reason at the time, in that there was this concern about sensitivity or the fact buildings, which were their own entities for so long, were to become not eaten up, but melded into the Maple Run with one board. And Jim felt strongly that we had to try to find a vehicle to ensure principals and other leaders had a voice to be able to talk so that they didn't feel that you wouldn't know what was going on at St. Tac or at Fairfield. What we talked about is we're past that now. And people in front of me, please tell me, I mean, if I'm missing something, let me know. But the feeling is we're past that now. We're past the fact that we're going to treat one building different than another. Certainly the leadership is, and certainly the board is. So we don't feel we need to give you the party line or the good, neat time when we're doing a band concert on Thursday in our building. And we think it might be a best. That usually is about 15 minutes of a board time at the end. We thought it might be best for us to look at the things we're doing. We feel the board should know around challenges and things like that, and use that time as a team to give you that information, to talk about some of the challenges that are going on. Sean was good enough to make a Google document for all of us where we could start putting in things that we think we should be talking about.
It's easy to make the Google Doc.
It is. Yes. I believe you actually put a few things in it though, didn't you?
Did put
Oh,
a few
okay.
things in.
Yep. And we can actually show you that document, because you might say, oh, this is something that,
Bump that one up.
yeah, let's bump that up. So we thought it just might be a more appropriate use of time. Nobody in front of me here, to my knowledge, is going to be peeved that they don't have that 3 or 4 minutes to give PR on their own building, because they feel they're part of Maple Run now.
If I could add, I would think that whoever host site it was, so maybe Sean did a little bit more of a presentation. He could take us 3 and 4 extra minutes, to maybe talk about things that are going on at Fairfield when we're at Fairfield, and then where we're at SATEC, maybe there could be a little bit more of a in-depth administrator report from SATEC, so we can hear more clearly, and we would actually physically be located there, so we could, get a better feel. And I'm all on board with this, but I do think that before we eliminate something, I think that we, as a board, need to create the goals first, to make it all make sense. So we know what we're asking, what information we're asking for, what information, what information we're looking for, in terms of what would be filling up that Google Doc.
Yep.
Anybody else have
Other
comments?
thoughts?
I like the idea.
Okay. It won't start, Andrea?
We had also brainstormed the idea that we would do the presentations when we were down at central office, but when they're in the buildings, there was still gonna be a showcase of them.
Oh, that's a good point. We did say
Talked about
that.
that
So
kind
the
of
business meeting,
There's some sort of rotation.
the first meeting of the month, which is always in central office, would be the time that we do what we're talking to you about. And then the second one, kind of what Joanna said, is we'd still make that kind of a highlight of that school that we're in. And that might become a little bit more sophisticated as to what we talk about. So thank you, Andrea.
That sounds good to me.
Okay. The third thing I have for you is just something for you to be aware of. It's on your radar because it's probably something we're going to be talking about more and more. We received some guidance from the Agency of Education relative to special education costs over the last, what was it, Andre, the last few weeks? But it was starting earlier. That is very controversial. Many people disagree with it. So there's no set thing here, and I think there's actually people who are going to be arguing this. But relative to special education costs on, especially when we contract and send kids to outside placement. Right now, most of the outside placement for special ed kid, it becomes a special ed cost. Now they're saying that a portion of that has to be general ed costs. And why is that important? You may say a cost is a cost, but if they go through with this, that will make special ed costs, we get reimbursed in fairly significantly in some cases if they're large costs. General ed costs, you don't get any reimbursement. And that's going to make a significant chunk of the budget if this goes through.
Did they say what the percentage was?
So it seems to be that the state has been trying to talk to these private schools directly and having them kind of pull out what part is therapeutic and what part should be counted as general ed. And based on that, they've been assigned kind of a rough percentage. But some of them are up to 50%, 60%, 70% gen ed. So it's really shifting that whole train of thought. Whereas prior to that, we've been kind of following the logic that if we are finding that we are not capable of servicing someone in public school
as gen ed, we've considered that to be general ed, then by definition, the entire outplacement is specialized. And they're having us pull that apart more now, so.
And this is a state-
It depends on the school that you're sending to.
There's a lot of schools in the state that are upset about this.
Yeah.
So is this is a state conversation? This isn't like an audit specific to Maple Run or
No.
anything like that?
No, this is, that
Generic.
there are new people in the special ed department who believe that forever Vermont has dealt with their special ed costs incorrectly. There's huge pushback. There are school districts who believe strongly that these people are not following federal guidelines, and some schools are even talking about suing. I'm putting it out there only because it's important for you to know. It may or may not come up when it comes budget time, because I don't know how, if the pushback that they're getting from all the different organizations is gonna slow them down, but it is something that we're gonna have to be talking more about.
In the meantime, are you going to look at how many students do we have that might be?
We're looking, I know, Andrea's already on this, that we're gonna start looking at how much would that affect us in cost.
So we already had a ballpark idea, but now that they've kind of given us specifics, we can go back and look at kind of a little bit closer on the specifics. And again, it's just a change in how they're giving us guidance. So it's not been a rule change, it's not been legislature, they're just shifting their guidance by memos to us to change their thinking.
And I think it's like they said, that, they're like enforcing pre-existing rules or.
Well, they're just reinterpreting.
They're reinterpreting, not by law.
They're changing their guidance, yeah.
Right.
So,
Okay, good way to end your report.
sorry.
Dr. Odell.
I don't have much more to add other
Should
than
I call you Jack?
you did get a picture of a tree in your handout, and I just wanted to tell you what the tree is. I find it useful for myself to have a vision to guide me as a leader, and I presented this tree to the faculty and staff at the beginning of the year. This is just sort of how I want to think about my priorities in this particular school at this particular time. So basically everything funnels up from our community right through personalized learning to instructional quality and social emotional learning within sort of a big framework of equity. So like that's basically my decision-making processes in the school are guided by this tree. And it's just a visual that helps me. I've always loved that for myself. So I thought it'd be interesting to share with you.
Thank you. Item 9D, principal voices. Mr. Mosca.
I just wanted to hand something out to you that, for me, I file under where were you when I needed you. It's a roadmap for implementing standards-based grading. It was something that I got today, actually, from the NASSP bulletin. And it's really a nice read because it gives a very succinct way of how to properly implement with some clear steps from the systems approach. So I just thought you might appreciate that in light of our recent conversation.
Thank you. Heather?
I'm gonna read off my phone, so I'm sorry, because this is hot off the presses. And I just received it. Bakasha Bilodeau took some students from CIP to Norwich University for the Special Olympics Soccer Unified Championship tournament today. They were just down there, and the results are in. Our team got 2 gold, 2 silver, 1 gold, 1 bronze, and won the 4th place ribbon for unified sports.
Nice. Great. Thank you. Sarah?
Well, I think you heard enough from me tonight. That's basically what I've been in for the last month. So.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Joan?
So today we hosted the Green Mountain Care Board with Northwest Medical Center And I learned something today that I didn't know. About 3 years ago, when we were doing universal meals, one of my big things was I couldn't stand the salad dressings because we were buying Ken's and it's almost all chemicals. And I understood we needed to do low fat, but I thought we could do better, so I challenged Megan to come up with some better dressings. So she created Raider Ranch and Maple Run Balsamic and Raider Ranch. And what I found out today, they also introduced a Caesars. So they got to taste it, the people from the Green Mountain Care Board and the people from the hospital in Rise, Vermont, all got to taste our dressings. And what I didn't know is that the Abbey has gone to that for all of their food service. So there's 180 schools that are benefiting from the fact that I didn't like the chemicals. So it was really kind of fun today to learn that. So just a little thing, and it's kind of fun.
It's good.
Very good.
Stacy?
We just keep on keeping on, doing our thing. We're learning, we're having fun. That's all.
Good. Leanne?
I think Jason's going to speak to this, but I'm going to steal his thunder for a bit. Our outdoor technology program was recognized by Senator Leahy in addition to the students at SATEC for the Farm to Table program. And the outdoor technology program is integral in getting into the K-8 schools to work with students so that they are aware of the outdoor technology program. And they helped build the raised beds that they use for their Farm to Table. So kids were actually sophomores this year, and so the freshmen, they were originally freshmen when they built the raised beds, so they were taken out of classes so they could be recognized on last Thursday.
And that program is new, right?
Yes, we're on its second year.
Yep. Good.
Thank you.
Lisa?
I'll just stand so you can see me. Another outdoor technology update, and this has to deal with Fairfield. So the students designed and built the Gaga pit that we hear so much about. We may need to go out and see a picture of it, so a lot of us are asking what it was. But more importantly, it was just a wonderful collaborative project that includes a BFA math teacher, Corey Sweet, with Jacob Holtzberg-Pill, who is our outdoor technology teacher. So they earn a math credit in this course, and the math that went on with building the Gaga pit was amazing, and they were talking and calculating angles, and just the inherent discussion that came out of it and the problem solving was really fantastic. And then they finished it today, right?
It was today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was good.
The kids have already broken it in.
I think they have to make one for SATEC. I think you guys don't have one yet, right? Thank you. All right, Jason.
Yep, so Leanne mentioned it, and you may have seen it in the messenger or on the news. What started as just a mention at a meeting, actually it was a food service meeting talking. Anyways, long story short, Tammy sent me a text, Tammy Diso, saying they want us to host. We said, sure, why not? Then we said, why us? And all of a sudden we found out Senator Leahy was coming. We found out the Secretary of Ag was coming. It became a thing as like their stop on the tour for Farm to School Month to recognize, and we were late. We're the last K-8 to the game in the district with Farm to School. So there's a lot of collaborative effort across schools to get us where we were, but with just a little bit of seed money and a lot of commitment, and then our facilities manager finding money in his budget to help us move forward. They felt we've done a lot in a short amount of time, a lot of community support and a lot of staff support to bring Farm to School into our building and cutting across, like I said, across schools. So it was nice for our school to have Senator Leahy visit us and to take a tour of the school and to see our kids and to see the little bit that we've done in a short amount of time. I say little, but it's huge. So many great staff members. I don't want to mention someone because I'm going to miss them all. But it's a team effort, and there is no director, there's no coordinator for Farm to School. So this is teachers and staff doing it in addition to everything else they're trying to do because they believe it's just something important to do. So hopefully we'll get to the point where we have a coordinator for that, but that's in the future. And also to make sure that we're not outdone by Sean's mention of Jack saying they're now at gold status, Angela will be attending the RISE VT Awards scoring because SATEC we achieved gold status as a school this year as well. So we were pretty pleased with that too. So that's what I have.
Great, thank you. I can't see him, but I know Tim's back
He's
there.
right there, he's right here.
Things are great at Collins Burley. We had a successful homecoming. Powder Puff, they raised over $20,000. Next weekend, we hosted the Vermont Special Olympics. Very successful. So many kids, so many parents and relatives in attendance. We also had a dinner dance that night and 2 Steeler games. But I'd also like to commend Bill and Sarah. For 4 months, you're in the thick of this. I think you're doing an excellent job. Chris and your administration, it's a bad situation, but I really feel you'll get it right. And I feel Alex will go to Stanford. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, item 9E, board announcements. Anybody have an announcement? Susan?
Cross-country race at Hardhack, I think, this weekend, right?
Yeah.
Hardhack, it's a home meet.
And I have a tag on to Joan's announcement. So Green Mountain Care Board came up to the hospital for their board meeting afterwards and touted not only the schools and how much they've had fun dancing in the classroom with the brain break with Tess Basha and her group of kids, but using the board's new wellness policy as a model for the state and encouraging other boards to do similar. So I thought I would share.
Yeah, good. Okay, agenda items for future meetings. I know at the next meeting, we will be having the technology study.
And I'm going to try to get that technology study out to you before the actual board agenda goes out, because it's 50 some odd pages. So,
And that was that up? That was a suggestion, right? Because you had asked about that.
But
That's why
they had already done it, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
it's a technology audit that we've done and that you need to see, you should see.
Mhm. I guess my question is, when are we gonna get to our goals?
Well, that'd be the first step. That would be getting us information that might lead us to one of our goals. So,
Okay, well, I think we have some goals already that we got out. I think we could have a discussion. I'd like to have a discussion about what we identified as possible goals, even just during our retreat. I just think before we take on something so huge like the technology study, I'm not suggesting for a second that that's not important. I just feel like we have a lot of information that we identified at that retreat. And I think that we could begin to generate some of those goals before we take on something, pretty big to digest, because I think that we could get lost in that.
okay.
But also put criteria around the goals too, so it's consistent.
Well, one thing I heard you say last time also, which we're working on as a leadership team, is to take what we gave you for those challenges and prioritizing them for you.
And putting them on
Which
the
would
goal.
help,
Yeah.
which will help you relative to those goals. We're not totally done on that, but we're gonna do that, and the technology study happens to be part one of those.
Absolutely.
So,
Thank you.
Okay, I'd look for a motion to go into executive session for
So moved.
personnel evaluations under 1 VSA 313A3. Thank you, Al.
Second.
Thank you, Nilda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are in executive session. Oh, to include the